All right. So I think we'll get started now. So once again, my name is Daniel Cho from Lifestyles Medicine, and thank you for joining us for this Lifestyle Med live event. It's nice to see some familiar faces and many new ones. So today's topic is when should I eat? And we'll be talking about meal timing, fasting, time restricted feeding. I'm sure many of you have heard of these terms. It's really hot right now as a topic, and we've just seen a lot of interest in this webinar. So really appreciate you joining us. Want to As we get started, just want to share a few housekeeping things. First, please do note that this event is being live streamed on Facebook. It is also being recorded as well. So please just take note of that. Also, I just want to recognize that this event is being brought together by many partners. So again, I'm here representing Lifestyles Medicine. We're a not-for-profit based in Toronto that puts on community-based lifestyle medicine programs. And we're really proud to be the host of this online event. We also partner with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Many of you may know that Seventh-day Adventists are one of the healthiest and longest living people groups in the world. And so we're really glad that they will partner with us tonight. We also partner with Energy Shack Juice Bar. One of our speakers, Carolyn Nichols, is the founder and nutritionist there. Energy Shack Juice Bar is located in Toronto, and they produce plant-based healthy juices and prepared meals. So thank you, Carolyn, for joining us. And finally, Pathways Lifestyle Medicine Clinics is a group of naturopathic and lifestyle medicine clinics in Toronto. They operate out of 3 locations, and so we're really glad to partner with them. So let me introduce you to our speakers. The first speaker is Dr. George Cho. He's a clinic director at Pathways. He's also works out of Cleveland Clinic, Canada in downtown Toronto. And he also works as a naturopathic doctor at the Energy Shack Juice Bar. So Dr. Cho will be going through some of the science behind time-restricted feeding, intermittent fasting, and what does the current science say about meal timing and its health benefits. He'll be followed by Carolyn Nichols, who is the founder and nutritionist at Energy Shack Juice Bar. We are really proud to partner with Carolyn again on this webinar. So thank you, Carolyn, so much for joining us. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cho, who will get us started. So they'll be presenting for approximately 40 to 45 minutes, and then after that, we'll be taking your questions. So we encourage you to put your questions into the chat box, and then we'll go through as many as possible following the presentations. So thank you so much, Dr. Cho.
All right, everyone. So glad you're joining us here for this talk. Hope you all have been doing well, and that despite COVID. So we want to talk about intermittent fasting, time restricted fasting, and some of the science behind it. I'm going to begin with just saying that this field of research is generally new. There's a lot that we don't know. So I'm going to be sharing you some of the latest data and piecing together kind of a picture that we can get from the research, but understand that this is still a very much an evolving field when it comes to at least the scientific literature. Okay. All right. So we all know that what we eat is important. We know that how much we eat is important, but how about when we eat? Is that important? And I don't think a lot of people give as much thought to this aspect of health. With the technology like lights and things like that, it has radically transformed the way humans eat. Back in the day, you could imagine most people, as soon as it got dark, you have to stop eating, right? You'd only eat during the daytime. But because of technology, now we're able to eat pretty much any time of the day. Is this healthy? Is this not? We want to kind of explore some of that today. Okay, so what does the typical North American, well, how do we eat, our patterns? Well, we don't need to guess. They've done studies on this, and generally a picture does emerge as to the way that we eat. Okay, so for example, in this study here from 2015, you could see here we have, as a society, we generally have a very large window, a feeding window. All right, so anywhere between 12, 15, even 16-hour window of feeding. Okay, and if you look on your right side, each of those rows represents one individual. And you can see here, the red bars, they represent a feeding in event, right? A time where they actually, someone ate something, okay? So, and you can see here, people actually don't eat 3 times a day. They actually eat much more than that. So if you look at the top individual, this person had 7 feeding events, all right? And you could see, you could go right down the line and you could see here, pretty much no one's eating 3 meals a day. They're eating 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. Now, we're not talking about meals, but we're just talking about anytime they had a snack, chips, a meal, whatever. But basically, we eat very sporadically, as you can tell. Okay. And the feeding windows are quite long. All right. 12, 14, 15, 16 hours. All right. Uh, this does that same study looked at when people eat their first meal and when they ate their last feeding event. And typically it was about 9 o'clock to about 9 o'clock. So 12 hours or so. All right. So again, a wide range of feeding. Okay. Here you can see this each column here represents one individual, and each little dot represents a feeding event. As you can see, people generally do not have set times for meals. As you can see, it's quite sporadic. All right, so we eat very irregularly. So not only is our feeding windows long, not only do we have many feeding events, but when we eat is also quite sporadic. All right, this idea of 3 very clean and very cut out time frames for eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's actually not true. People generally tend to graze throughout the day, it seems. Okay. Now, we don't need scientists to tell us this. I mean, we all know the way that typical North Americans eat, right? So, for example, many people, they wake up in the morning, they rush out the door, they go to Tim Hortons, they grab their pastry and their coffee, right? Then a few hours later, they're hungry, so they grab the sandwich and their apple, they have their quote unquote breakfast, right? Then, of course, lunchtime rolls around, and then you have your lunch, and then before you leave the office, you're gonna grab some of the treats that are lying around at the office, right? So already at 4 by the time your work day ends. Then of course you go home, you have your dinner, and then you watch some Netflix and you eat some type of snack, and then you go to bed. We know that this is the story for many individuals. Not only that though, but we know that that a lot of people, their largest meal is the dinner, and second comes a lunch. Usually breakfast is the smallest meal of the day. Okay. On top of that, we notice that we now, as I mentioned before, because of technology, we're able to eat at night, right? So breakfast all the way till late afternoon, it's daytime feeding. But due to technology, now we're able to eat into the night. All right. So this is the way many people eat. Okay. In fact, many of the calories come during the night. Okay. What we want to argue here today is that perhaps it's better to eat during the daytime and have shorter feeding windows and perhaps less frequent meals, and make the largest meal in the morning, not the evening. That's what we want to argue for today, from mainly a cardiometabolic and a weight standpoint. Okay, so let's take a look at the evidence to see whether there's something to this idea. Okay, so first, are there benefits to shortening the feeding window? Instead of 14 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours, how about something a little bit shorter? Okay, are there benefits to that? And the answer is yes. Okay, in this study here, you see the red bars, that's the baseline. And they ask people to shorten their feeding window. all right? And you can see the blue line that represents the feeding window when they're asked to shorten it, okay? So you see here about 4.5 hours shorter feeding window, okay, amongst these people, all right? And what did they find? Well, at least from a weight standpoint, those who had a shorter feeding window actually significantly lost weight, more weight than those who did not, okay? So they dropped about 7 pounds in 4 months, and they were able to actually maintain it after 1 year. And even though they were not asked to change their diet or eat less calories, because their feeding window went down, they just kind of automatically reduced their calories. Okay. And so when you actually read the studies, they actually say that, giving this very simple advice of shortening the feeding window might actually be a very easy way to help people just automatically reduce the number of calories that they eat. And when you lose weight, obviously that has downstream cardiometabolic benefits. All right. Here again, you can see here when they're asked to shorten their feeding window, you can see here the patients did that. So orange represents before, and then blue represents the feeding window afterwards. And you can see the majority of them were actually able to significantly shorten their feeding window. All right. And they ate less. So their eating occasions went from about 5 to about 3 or 4. Okay. And what did they find? Very similar results. So you see here the weight, the dark bars represent the time restricted eating. Okay. When they shorten the window of eating, you can see they lost more weight, lean mass, fat mass, and even visceral fat. And visceral fat is very significant. It's the most important type. Okay. So again, we see here some benefits, at least from a weight standpoint. Okay. And I want to emphasize in these studies, they did not tell them to change their diet. All right. So that's interesting. And in fact, if they had implemented a healthier diet on top of time restricted feeding, my guess is that there would be even more significant benefits. Now, some of you might be saying like, well, I'm going to get really, really hungry, right? If I do this, if I don't eat for like 14 hours, 16 hours, I'm going to get really, really hungry. Well, that's actually not true. So if you look here, in this study, what they found was that first, the individuals who shortened their feeding window, so that means that they had a longer fasting window, right? They're fasting for a longer period of time. They're more energetic in the morning, okay? And on top of that, you see the hunger at bedtime was actually lower in those who did the time restricted eating. Okay, that's very interesting. And their sleep satisfaction was actually better. Okay. And that kind of makes sense. If you're eating, if you have a meal, it's still sitting in your stomach and you go to bed, we all know that feeling. It just doesn't feel that good. All right. But when you actually sleep on a more emptier stomach, your sleep satisfaction actually will go up. All right. Now, another question is, what is the best time? So, shortening the feeding window is good, but how about when do we time this? All right, so that's another question. Okay, well, they looked at pre-diabetes individuals, and they looked at two different groups. Okay, so one group eating from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., so that's 12 hours. Okay, then they also looked at another group. They're eating from 8 to 2. Okay, so pretty much morning to early afternoon was their feeding window, and they're having a very, very long fasting period. All right. So let's see what happened. Okay. Their mean glucose and the glucose control didn't seem to differ too much. However, the insulin response or the insulin levels were actually lower in the time restricted feeding group. Okay, that's very interesting. That's actually significant. Okay, it's statistically significant. So less insulin was needed. All right. Now, interesting enough, the beta cell response. So this means the pancreas. In your pancreas, you have beta cells, and they produce insulin in response to your body's need. The responsiveness was actually improved, better, and the insulin resistance was lower. Okay, in those who had the 6-hour window of eating, okay, compared to those who had 12 hours. Okay, so it seems like at least for individuals who might be struggling with their blood sugar control, this might actually be a very viable option. The blood pressure was lower as well in the early time restricted feeding group. Now the cholesterol levels went up, and the reason for that probably they write in the paper is that when you do a long overnight fast and then you test your lipids right afterwards, your body actually puts triglycerides and fats into your bloodstream in response to the fast. Okay, and you notice here 8-isoprostane. Okay, this is actually a marker of lipid peroxidation. So what that means is pretty much oxidation of lipids, and this isoprostane is a result of that, and it's a marker of antioxidant capabilities in your body. Okay, and so you see here higher levels of isoprostane in the control group, which indicates less antioxidant capacity. All right, so that's actually a very interesting finding as well. Okay, now what's even more interesting was their hunger scores. Okay, as you can see here, the evening hunger score was actually lower in the early time restricted feeding group. Is that interesting? So they fasted longer, yet their desire to eat was lower. Okay, their capacity to eat was lower, and look at their hunger; it was actually no different. So that's really interesting. Statistically, there was no difference, and so that goes against the notion that if you fast for like 14 or 16 hours or so, that you're gonna be starving. That's actually not the case. All right. In fact, their fullness was actually even higher in the early time restricted feeding group. Okay. So in the paper, they concluded here that having a very short window of eating and earlier in the day could actually lower the necessity for insulin, increase insulin sensitivity, increase beta cell function, lower blood pressure, oxidative stress, lower appetite, and so forth. Okay, so it's actually quite beneficial. All right. So in conclusion, this is what they say here. They say, thus, despite the longer daily fasting duration for the early time restricted schedule, early time restricted feeding does not increase hunger, at least not when food intake is calorie matched to the control arm. On the contrary, early time restricted feeding decreased the desire and capacity to eat and increased feelings of fullness in the evening. Early time restricted feeding may therefore help curb increased feelings of fullness, may help curb food intake in the evening and in turn facilitate weight loss. This is consistent with rodent studies and so forth. And other forms of time restricted feeding reduce appetite hormones and body weight. Okay, we'll get to that, how it affects appetite hormones. Okay, this is a similar study, and they looked again at a similar time window compared to a longer one. Okay, and they found similar results. So the here the thermic effect of food was actually higher. The hunger hormone, the ghrelin, was actually lower. Okay, and here desire to eat, okay, was at some points was actually lower in the early time restricted feeding group. Okay, sense of fullness was actually higher at various points. Okay, so they conclude early time restricted feeding also tend to decrease the mean desire to eat and increase fullness across the waking day. These improvements in appetite are corroborated by other meal timing studies. All right, so this is contrary to what people might think. Surprisingly and paradoxically, early time restricted feeding reduced swings in hunger. Isn't that interesting? Making hunger levels more even keeled throughout the day, which may reduce overeating and binge eating. Now, I believe this is actually really true. When you skip breakfast, you notice that you just your hunger regulation is just not that great. You're constantly snacking throughout the day, and you don't seem satisfied. But when you eat a good breakfast and earlier in the day, it actually manages your hunger a little bit better. All right, and this is actually brought out in the studies. Okay. Now, what's very interesting here is actually what they found was that it actually could affect autophagy. This idea of having a longer fasting period can actually upregulate autophagy. Now, what is autophagy? Well, just imagine your house, okay? And if you have a broken window in your house, what are you gonna do? Well, you don't leave it there. You're gonna fix it, right? You're gonna repair it, okay? Same with garbage. If you have garbage built up in your house, what are you gonna do? You're gonna put it in your garbage bags and throw it out, and they're gonna come by and get rid of the garbage, right? Well, your cells in your body is no different, all right? So this is your cell, and you got different organelles, the mitochondria, you got the endoplasmic reticulum, you got a lot of different components in your cell. And just like your house or anywhere else, your workplace, you know, things break down, things get old and rusty, and things need to get recycled and repaired, right? Or eliminated. Your cells are exactly the same way. And autophagy is one of the mechanisms that does that. Okay, so for example, if you get this mitochondria, let's imagine that this mitochondria is old. Okay, let's just simply put, let's just say it's old, and just to simplify it. So what's your body gonna do? Well, it's gonna form a membrane around this mitochondria. Okay, so it's gonna form what's called an autophagosome. Now you got this thing called a lysosome, and your lysosome is gonna kind of join together with this autophagosome, and you see those green circles. These are enzymes that are gonna digest the mitochondria. Okay, and so it's gonna go and basically destroy it. All right. So basically, it's one of the ways that your body helps get rid of the old stuff and kind of put in the new stuff, or just very simply, that's just kind of what's going on. Okay, and so this is called autophagy. All right, and it seems like when you have a long fasting period, it stimulates this process of autophagy, which is very, very good. Okay, so that I think that's really, really fascinating. All right, now the question is, you know, why does this work? So, you know, how come eating earlier in the day, eating more during the daylight hours, not late at night, shorter feeding window, why is this all really beneficial? Well, we don't need to guess. The researchers tell us what's going on. Okay. Here, this is what they say. Notice the circadian system or internal biological clock may explain why the effects of time-restricted feeding appear to depend on the time of day. Glucose, lipid, and energy metabolism are all regulated by the circadian system, which upregulates them at some times of day and downregulates them at others. For instance, in humans, insulin sensitivity, beta cell responsiveness, and the thermic effect of food are all higher in the morning and in the afternoon than in the afternoon or evening, suggesting that human metabolism is optimized for food intake in the morning. Okay, so this is really, really fascinating. Okay, indeed, studies in humans show that eating in alignment with circadian rhythms in metabolism by increasing food intake at breakfast time and by reducing it at dinner time improves glycemic control, weight loss, lipid levels, and also reduces hunger. This suggests that the efficacy of intermittent fasting interventions may depend not only on weight loss, but also on the time of day of food intake. Okay, so in your brain, you have a center called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN, all right? And this regulates your circadian rhythm. Your hormones, your body operates on a rhythm, okay? And it's attuned to the day-night cycle. So you see this eye here, so daytime and nighttime, right? That helps kind of regulate this SCN, which in turn regulates the rest of the body. Okay, so you can see here, the circadian system of impacts so many aspects of our health: cognition, mood, brain homeostasis, appetite, hormones, temperature, feeding and fasting, and so forth. Okay, and then in turn affects the heart, liver, and whatever. Okay, so this SCN is the master regulator in your body, and you want to eat in alignment with that. And this thing aligns itself, is in tune with the day and the night cycle. All right, so we as humans, we can't just do whatever at any time of the day, night or day, and it doesn't matter. No, that's not the case. It actually does matter because our bodies function on this circadian system. And what they're saying is that the way that our hormones are released and our digestive system and our physiology works, it's better to eat earlier in the day and less at nighttime. Okay, that is what they are saying. Okay, so for example, let's take a look here. So you see here, this is during the day, this is during the night. You see here, insulin is hot, it spikes earlier in the day. Insulin puts sugar inside your your cells. It takes it out of the bloodstream into your cells. So based on this, when would be the best time to consume your carbohydrates? Earlier in the day, right? It makes sense. Okay, so this is kind of what we're talking about here. Okay. Humans exhibit a daily rhythm in the production of saliva, gastric acids, digestive enzymes, and bile salts. The production of all of which declines late at night. Aligned with the production of these digestive agents, intestinal peristalsis also shows a daily rhythm, with reduced contractions at night. Finally, colonic movement increases in the early morning, driving a daily rhythm in excretion. So what it's saying is that your gastric juices that you need, right, they decline at night, all right? And even peristalsis is reduced at night, okay? Now, some of you might be saying, well, that's okay. I eat dinner at 7 o'clock, okay? So that's not really night. That's not late at night, so I'm good, okay? But actually, that fails to understand how digestion works, okay? So you see here, the food goes in your mouth, it goes into the stomach, then it goes into the small intestine, the duodenum right here, okay? As you can see, most of your digestive enzymes are actually secreted in the small intestine, not in your stomach. Now, the stomach is really important, okay? But much of digestion actually occurs in the small intestine. But the thing is, the stomach, it takes about 3 to 5 hours, even perhaps 6 hours to actually fully empty and to empty its contents into the small intestine. So that means that if you're eating at 7 o'clock, your stomach might not be emptied out of that meal by 12 o'clock, which is pretty much the time when all these digestive enzymes might start decreasing. So you see here, just because you eat at 7 or 8 or 7:30, it actually doesn't solve the problem. Okay, it's better to actually eat earlier in the day. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, peristalsis, right, is basically your digestive tract it has to move things along, right? And so what it does, it contracts to move your food along. So what it's saying here is that this process also declines at nighttime, okay? And it happens in the stomach, but also happens in the intestines, okay? So again, you can see here, when you eat at 7 o'clock, okay, it gets into the small intestine by 12 o'clock. Well, by that time at night, that late at night, your peristalsis is decreasing. Okay, so you can have food kind of sitting in your abdomen. Okay, and so you ever eat late at night and then you wake up and it feels like your food is still there. Well, perhaps this might explain why. Okay, now I want you to notice here melatonin goes up at night. Okay, now that's really important because it can affect insulin signaling. So here you have the pancreas, and your pancreas has different types of cells. One of the most important functions is to produce insulin. When insulin binds to its receptor, then sugar goes into the cell. Okay, that's the basic physiology. Okay, however, you have something like melatonin, which is produced several hours before your habitual bedtime. Okay, and when and the beta pancreas here, the beta cells and the pancreas, it has receptors for melatonin. And when the melatonin binds to its receptor, it actually blocks or diminishes the production of insulin. All right. So again, you can see here, if you're eating dinner, and it's a very large dinner, then you go to bed, 3 or 4 hours later. Well, you need that insulin, but because melatonin is being produced, it's gonna start decreasing the level of insulin, which wouldn't really be good for digestion. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, and this pretty much says that. All right. Now I want to just close off here and give the floor to Nick Carolyn, but just a few things here. I want you to notice this quote. It says here, feeding can activate nutrient sensing pathways separate from the circadian system. But the suboptimal expression of circadian-driven genes compromises how the food is processed. In summary, this interaction defines a limited time window for optimal nutrient metabolism, okay? Another way to put it is peripheral clocks are exquisitely sensitive to fasting feeding cycle and can be uncoupled from the central clock through modifications in meal delivery, okay? So what is it talking about? Well, actually, let's go back here to this. So your peripheral tissues actually have their own clocks. So even though they're regulated by the master clock, the SCN, the circadian system, they actually have their own internal clocks. And what happens, these are very sensitive, okay, these are very sensitive here to feeding. And so when people are feeding feeding opposite to their circadian rhythm or not in alignment with their circadian rhythm, it can actually uncouple these two systems, which then causes health problems. Okay, that's what pretty much it's saying. Okay. All right. Now, how about the number of meals? All right, so we've argued that perhaps eating early in the day is good, shorter window of time might be good. How about the number of meals? All right. You know, they've done studies, at least looking from a weight perspective, where they suggest that maybe 2 meals per day might actually be better. So for example, this is comparing 2 meals per day versus 6 meals on a hypocaloric diet. And from a weight perspective, you can see here, those who ate 2 meals per day actually dropped more weight, all right? And they did this in a time-restricted manner, breakfast and lunch, okay? Plasma glucose was actually lower as well, okay, in this group, okay? C-peptide was a measure of blood sugar control and diabetes. That was actually better as well in the 2 meals a day group, okay? And here, this is a study done in the Adventist Health Study 2 cohort. This cohort consists of over 30,000 individuals of the Seventh-day Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists in North America. They tracked these individuals for 7 years, okay? And they looked at, you know, those who are eating different number of meals and how their body weight changed. And you can see here, 1 meal, 2 meals, 3 meals, pretty much it's almost like a dose response. The more meals you're eating, the more your weight goes up over the course of each year, okay? Here you see length of night fasting. Those who fasted, had a longer fasting period at night, actually were able to lower their weight each year, okay, compared to those who had a shorter fasting window. So pretty much they're eating a dinner or even a late dinner, okay? And this is showing the benefits of breakfast, okay, and so forth. Okay. So in their study, they concluded, in conclusion, our results suggest that eating less frequently and eating no snacks, consuming breakfast and eating the largest meal in the morning may be effective long-term preventive tool tools against weight gain for those in whom this would be unhealthy. Eating only 2 meals per day, breakfast and lunch, 5 to 6 hours apart, may also be an interesting strategy for weight control. Although the annual effects of these meal patterns on BMI are small, they may be very important across a lifetime. Okay, so small changes in weight over a lifetime do make a big difference. Okay. This paper sums up very nicely. There are many myths and presumptions concerning diet and health, including that it is important to eat 3 or more meals per day on a regular basis. Pretty much what these researchers are saying is that that's a myth. And this is from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a very prestigious journal here. Okay. So in summary, I want to say basically that, you know, the way that we North Americans eat right now is a new phenomenon. We have to realize that the ability to eat at night is something very new. Okay, these ancient Koreans, this picture here probably took place. This meal probably took place during the day. Okay, and you know, my mother, she used to own a kind of a farm out north, and sometimes the lights wouldn't work really well. And so, and I could assure you that when it got dark, pretty much you're just going to bed. It's hard to eat at night. All right, you don't want to get a candle out. It's just annoying to do that. You just, when it gets dark, you just go to bed. All right, and so our ancestors for thousands of years, pretty much when the sun goes up, that's when they eat, and when the sun goes down, that's when they sleep. Right, that's the way that humans were meant to work. Right, we're designed to be that way. It's only with modern technology that we're seeing this ability to eat when it's dark. And we now our feeding windows are very, very long. And I believe that that this is actually not the best way to do things. I believe that's better to have a shorter feeding window earlier in the day and eat when it is daytime and let your body rest when it is night. And I think intuitively, when you just think about it, it makes sense. At nighttime, we're supposed to go to bed and our body is supposed to rest. It's not supposed to be dealing with a large bolus of food, large meals, okay? So I want to submit to you that I believe it's better to have a larger breakfast, have another meal, maybe 5-6 hours apart. If you have to have a third meal, then keep it a little bit smaller, okay? And still eat it during the daytime, okay? And then have a longer period of fasting. Okay, this seems to be better for hunger control, blood sugar control, weight control, and stimulating the process of autophagy, which helps recycle and get rid of garbage from your cells and put new things in repair, okay? So this is what I submit to you today. The science is still evolving, but at least based on what we know, it seems like this is at least the picture that we seem to get, okay? And with that, I'll hand it over to Carolyn here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Cho. What incredible information. I just love this information. And I just being mindful of everybody's time tonight. I know you tuned in because you want to hear truth and you want to hear this information. So I just want to show you something really practical. You've heard a lot of very technical information, which Dr. Cho broke it down so we can all understand. So thank you very much for that. But what I'd like to do is actually show you practically as a nutritionist what this looks like in your diet. And so I want to make it a little bit interactive. We might not all be able to pipe in and answer, but let's go right ahead. I'm just going to share my screen here and share this screen. And I'm hoping that as I do this, everybody can see my screen pretty clearly.
Yep, Carolyn, just play the PowerPoint.
Yeah, can you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, we see it.
When should I eat?
Yes.
Great. All right, so what I would like to just show you is what does your day look like? Dr. Cho's given us some incredibly amazing statistics and technically how the human body works. But now, how can we take this information and what does my meals look like every day? How can I make this practical and a reality? Because I'm reading through the chat and I'm seeing people are getting excited about this. And I want to tell you that I personally have been eating this way for more than 10 years. And I love the way I feel. I'm almost 47, I think, or 46. I don't even know because it doesn't even matter. I feel great every day. And as a nutritionist, I have the privilege, one, of working with Dr. Cho, but also with the clients that I work with, I have the privilege of watching them transform. And this is not just about weight loss, although that does go down. I'm watching people come off diabetic medication, high blood pressure medication, and digestion issues go away. And even my athletes are eating 2 big meals a day. So how does this look and how is it possible that you can eat less, heal the body, get all the nutrients you need, and feel good without being hungry? Because I'll tell you, by eating this way, it is not a starvation diet. So first of all, before you do anything, you will want to begin your day with a very healthy flush. The best thing to do is to begin your day by having a glass of warm water with lemon juice. And although the picture has a lemon in it, what you really should be doing is squeezing about a half a lemon. If you've got acid reflux or other issues, of course, I'm just generalizing for everybody. You might not be able to do this, but if you have a healthy digestive system, you'll want to start with lemon in your water and never apple cider vinegar. That's very, very dangerous. And that'll be another topic for another time. You drink that water quickly. It should be a flush. So you should drink that water quickly. As Dr. Cho explained, in the morning, that's when your waste system goes into play. That's when your Your body should be getting ready all night, getting that bowel movement ready, and it should, it should come out. And the lemon actually stimulates the peristalsis for your intestine to begin contracting and moving that bowel. So it's very important to start with a flush of lemon water, wait about 15 minutes, and then have another glass of warm water. Well, I'd like to ask you, which one do you think is the healthiest breakfast option here? We have our oatmeal with berries on top. We've got some chia seed pudding with a fruit compote. We also have some fruits on top. We have a smoothie bowl, which a bunch of fruits and berries. So this is picture 1 with our oatmeal. Picture 2 is chia. Picture 3 is our fruit smoothie bowl. And because we have a lot of people online, you don't necessarily have to all scream out the answer. But if somebody wants to type in the comments, do you think it's 1, 2, 3, or all of the above, or none of the above? And if you're not coming in, 1, all, okay. Here is the answer, 0. Can you believe it? 0. This is not, I mean, to some degree, it's a healthy breakfast, but it's not the way that you and I should be eating. You're like, what? I'm so confused now. Don't worry. I'm going to make it very clear. Chia seed pudding is good for you. Making your own oatmeal is wonderful for you. But the best way to start your day with a nice, big, healthy breakfast is that fruits need an empty stomach to digest. So you want to eat all your fruits and then bring in your oatmeal or your grains or your gluten-free bread with some almond butter, avocado, or then you bring in your chia. Putting your fresh fruits on top of your grains is a bit of a recipe for disaster inside your stomach gut, because as food goes into the stomach, fruits digest so quickly, they want to leave through the intestinal tract first. So this picture we have in front of us is a wonderful way to start the day. And if you don't like oatmeal, you don't have to have oatmeal. There's lots of other options. And again, Dr. Cho and I are available. I do free consultations. And with that, if you have coverage for a naturopathic doctor, we would be happy to set you up with both of us. And at the end of the slide, I'll give you the instructions on how you can do that. But your first thing after your lemon water and your plain water, wait 15 minutes, let water leave, and then you're going to have a nice big bowl of 2 to 3 cups of fruits. And right after, without waiting, you'll have your whole grains, and you will sweeten that with maybe some dates or raisins or nuts. Something very simple, but very hearty. And if you're a big person or an athlete, maybe you'll also have a slice of a wheat-free bread with that as well. So breakfast should be phenomenally wonderful, delicious, will not leave you feeling full and bloated, but very satisfied. Then you would wait 1 to 2 hours and then never eating and drinking at the same time. So you'll wait 1 to 2 hours and drink water and only water until you're hungry again. As Dr. Cho said so clearly and showed enough scientific information, if you are snacking all the time and an hour later you eat something, you interrupt digestion. This creates a major tax on your nervous system, your digestive system. It slows down energy. Even if it's a healthy nut, don't touch it. You should have had nuts with your breakfast. Don't eat them an hour later. Drink water and only water for the next about 5 to 6 hours. Water, 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 water. And honestly, if you ate that big bowl of fruit plus that big bowl of oats, you had dried fruits, nuts, you should not be hungry for the next 5 or 6 hours. So you're drinking water, water, water until you're like, ooh, I think I'm feeling hungry. Well, guess what? It's time for meal number 2. What does meal number 2 look like? So we've got a delicious bowl of some sort of a curry stew with lots of vegetables. We have a mixed salad here with some, curry over some delicious brown rice. Or we have a veggie burger on a gluten-free bun with all of our toppings. That's not real cheese, that's a plant-based cheese. So that's, maybe a Beyond Beef burger or something like that. So just let me know in the chat. Option number 1 is this bowl here to the left, our cauliflower stew, Option number 2 is our veggie meat burger on a gluten-free bun. And option number 3 is our salad mix with our curry. So will it be option number 1, 2, 3, all of the above, or none? Whoops, I blew it. I blew the answer. But let's just see what we had said. Option number 3, 3, 3. Well, we're close. Option number 3 is definitely the closest, but this is more, oh, minus the cranberries in here. Those are actually more sugar than they are fruit. So pretend you don't see cranberries. But option number 2 is the closest, but the way that we should be eating is we have a full bowl of raw salad. You know, folks, the enzymes that are in our raw food, they're not cooked, and those enzymes help to digest the cooked food. That's why you also want to have that bowl of fruit before the oats, not on it and not after it. That's why you want to have the big salad first. See, on this salad, I've got some sprouted chickpeas. They're raw, they're not cooked chickpeas. Again, scratch the dried fruit. If you've got arthritis or a lot of inflammation, you'll want to take the tomatoes out of there. Again, that's something else that Dr. Cho and I can talk to you about in my free consultation. So you want to have the full salad first, and after the salad, then you have your full plant-based meal, which will then have your brown rice or your sweet potato or your squash or your quinoa. You've got your cooked chickpeas on there, or your kidney beans, your spinach, your sweet potato. You will have like dinner at lunchtime. Now, if you have a very busy day and a long day, you can actually swap these 2 meals. You can have your salad and your cooked meal for breakfast. You can do your fruits and your oatmeal for lunch. It doesn't matter which way you do it, but what does matter is that you're just eating 2 meals a day. And your last big meal of the day, if you're ready, folks, should be about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the absolute latest. But you can imagine if you ate this full salad and then a full plate of food, you probably would not feel like eating dinner. And even if you ate it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you would just wait an hour, again, drink water, 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 and then you would have dinner. So let's see if we're learning anything, okay? So is this a healthy dinner? And I would like to see is option number 1, option number 2, option number 3, 1, 2, 3, I put it in order for you today. Would you say that option number 1, 2, or 3 is our healthy dinner? And if so, would it be all of the above or none of the above? I just want at least one answer. Diane has said none. Diane, we're learning. This is awesome. Do you want to know what your dinner should look like? A herbal tea. Wow. Who'd have thunk that? You know, I even have my clients on my program that are 350 pounds having just a herbal tea for dinner. And guess what? They're not hungry. Their diabetes is going away. Their blood sugar is dropping. It is an absolute myth that if you are a diabetic, you need to be snacking all day. You will constantly be spiking your blood sugar. Following these laws of health in this way of eating creates the most incredible balance. And I just want to show you real live testimonies of people that have come through our program and not only lost so much weight, but I'm looking here, you don't know all of these people, but Leolyn here, no more blood pressure meds. My sweet sister here, Joycelyn, she has completely reversed her respiratory issues, her digestion issues. My wonderful dear sister, Julia here, do you know, her fatty liver is almost non-existent. And boy, this wonderful Franz over here has been extended his life at least 2 years from a rare form of cancer. So what's happening here is phenomenal. And this, believe it or not, besides Fran's picture, which shows from November to June, he lost an incredible amount of weight. You will not lose that much weight in 30 days. If you do, it's dangerous. But everybody else, these pictures are 30 days apart. So If they can do it, you can do it too. Again, if you do have any questions, we'll do a little bit of question and answer. This is our contact information. If you know anybody who's struggling with diabetes, please make sure we do another free seminar on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Real testimonies, real information on how to actually reduce blood sugar levels naturally in the body. So if you just call us or email us or go to EnergyShackJuiceBar.com, sign up for the newsletter, then you'll be able to get that information. And again, I work very closely with Dr. George Cho. So if you do have naturopathic doctor on your benefits, or even if you don't, just do a free consultation with me. We can absolutely add him into the program because when we work together, the results are phenomenal. So at this time, I will just stop sharing my screen there. I get so excited about this because it's so real, and I watch people's lives transform in front of me. We have a 100% success rate at getting people off their med or reducing disease. So Dr. George Cho, I will leave it to you. There's lots of questions in the chat of how we're gonna tackle all of them.
Thank you, Carolyn. This is Daniel. So we do have questions and a few minutes. So we're gonna go through them on a first come, first serve. Thank you for those who put in questions. And I'm gonna ask Dr. Cho and Carolyn if you just keep your answers as succinct as possible so we could just motor through them. And of course, if you want more, you could always connect with Dr. Cho and Carolyn afterwards. So we got some really great questions. So Dr. Cho, I think this one is for you, and I just lost it here. 1 second. Okay, here. It's from Greg. Thank you, Greg. He says, I believe the data you're showing is based on observational data. Do you have any randomized controlled trials on intermittent fasting? So Dr. Cho, that one's for you.
Thanks, Dr. Kurnu, for coming on. I believe that I showed both observational and randomized controlled trials. Perhaps I didn't go through them deep enough to emphasize that, but I believe that the data we showed was a mix of both observational and randomized controlled trials. The clinical trials that we showed mainly were actually crossover studies, but it wasn't just observational studies. I believe he is also asking, am I a fan of intermittent fasting? And I believe the reference might be to where people eat one day, then fast the next day. I think there's some evidence behind that, but I think it just might be very hard for people to do, to just fast one whole day. So I personally, just from a clinical standpoint, I just generally don't recommend that to patients.
And if I could just go in there. So generally intermittent fasting means you don't eat until about 12 o'clock and then you have your first meal. So what we're explaining here and showing here is intermittent fasting, which I believe is the right way. A big breakfast, a good lunch, and then you're doing your 16-hour fast from 3 o'clock until the morning. So what we've been showing here is intermittent fasting, but the right way.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Carolyn. Question from Dina, are there any benefits to a 12 to 14-hour fasting window and also skipping lunch? So big breakfast and then a light dinner. And you may have touched on this, but maybe Dr. Cho, you first, and Carolyn, maybe briefly if you want to jump in after.
I think that's probably better than grazing throughout the day or having a larger dinner. So I know there's, because of work, sometimes patients, they have breakfast and they have a hard time having lunch, so they would need to come home and eat something afterwards. And so, you know, there's the ideal, but then there's also practical life. So if that's what people can manage, then yeah, that's better than what most people do. So I think just generally the principle is that eating more in the morning time and lesser as the day goes on. I think that's a good practice to have, with about 5 or 6 hours between meals. So however you work that through your schedule, I think that is really kind of the general principle here.
And I would just like to put 2 cents in there. If you do have a schedule where you can't sit down to eat at lunch, if that's the case, then you should start your day with your big salad and your cooked meal in the morning. That way, that'll take you all day. When you get home, even if it's 4 or 5 o'clock, you're just having fruits with maybe a few nuts, nothing that's going to interrupt bed. So if you can't eat lunch, then you should start your day with your dinner. That way, you're only eating fruits in the afternoon or evening, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Carolyn. Wonderful. This is just a comment I want to share. Dina says that she likes Histadea and is going to try. She's on a whole food, plant-based, low fat, and she thinks that this will be helpful. So thank you, Dina, for sharing that and for the presentation. We have a question came from Michael. He says, what are some useful strategies to avoid the all too common afternoon slump, where the energy kind of dips in the afternoon? I'm sure we've all felt this before. Maybe Carolyn, I'll let you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So almost all of my clients tell me that they lose that afternoon slump. When most people get that afternoon crash because they haven't had enough fresh food in their diet. So when you have a big bowl of fruit in the morning and then afterwards you're a small amount of carbohydrates, you actually feel extremely energized. And understand too, we didn't get into this, but when you have coffee in the morning, you will almost always have an afternoon dive because as the caffeine wears out. So drop your coffee, get rid of your black tea, green tea, have more fresh food in your diet, and you will not have that afternoon slump. If you do, call me.
All right. Thank you, Carolyn. We have a question from Zelda. How long should I wait till I eat my grains after my fruits? Carolyn.
Do not wait. As soon as you have your fruits, and remember, we're not having our grains after we're having our grains after our fruits. Don't waste any, don't even wait a minute. As soon as your fruits are finished, then you eat your bowl of grains right after. And then you wait about an hour to 2 hours and drink water and only water until you're hungry again. Then you have your salad without vinegar. It's very dangerous. Some people are asking that. And you have your full salad. After your salad, your cooked meal. Don't wait any time in between.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. And I think related to this as well from Jessica. Thank you, Jessica, for joining us. She's asking, so after having the big bowl of fruit in the morning, I usually get full. Is it okay to stop there as the breakfast? What are your thoughts, Carolyn?
Yeah, that's totally fine to stop there. But the problem with that is that will only keep you full for about 3 hours. So it's good to, right after the fruits, if you don't feel like having that grains part, just grab a handful of nuts, unroasted, unsalted, and have that right after your fruits, because that will keep you for a little longer. Or maybe you need to do just a little bit less fruits so you can have some grains. But I'll tell you, the raw portion is more important to your body than the cooked food. But the cooked food sustains you. It's healthy carbohydrates, it's healthy protein. So you need it, but you need more raw than cooked generally in your diet.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carolyn. A lot of questions for you, Carolyn. So question from Kathy. Can you have sugar in any of the meals or tea at dinner?
So first of all, we should be staying away from constantly sweetening our food. But say at night you feel a little peckish and the peppermint tea is not quite doing the job. So in those cases, yes, maybe a little bit of raw honey in your tea or a little bit of maple syrup, but we should avoid the use of refined sugars. But you don't want to get into the habit of always putting sugar in your herbal tea, because we need to cleanse the palate so we don't have these sugar addictions.
Okay, great. And since we're running out of time, I'm going to take one or two more here. A really good question, again from Jessica. She said, my husband is a plumber and does very hard work during the day. Would it be ideal for him to just have 2 meals? So, high energy work. Is 2 meals enough? Is it good? What are your thoughts, Carolyn?
Dr. George, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to address that?
I think that what we're sharing here is principles. So if someone is very physically active, then I think having a 3rd meal is okay. Probably just keep it a little bit lighter, obviously. Yeah. But I think, yeah, in that situation, it's okay. I mean, for example, if someone is a marathon runner, I'll never tell them just eat 2 meals a day, right?
Mm.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know, based on these principles, you have to start applying it to your own lives. And so absolutely, if someone is very, very physically active, and then yeah, third meal might be okay. Just keep it a little bit
It
lighter.
should be the smallest though. It shouldn't be as big as your other 2 meals.
Mhm.
It also takes time to adjust. Like the body takes time to adjust to these 2 meals. So the more and more you adjust, I have some athletes on our program that was like, I can't be without my third meal. But after 6 months of doing it, they're like, I'm not hungry at night anymore. So it takes time for the body to adjust to.
Mm, mm. Okay. Wonderful. All right. So we're gonna take just one last question here, and then we'll close. So question here from Bino: is a once a week fasting or half day fasting, is that good? Fasting one day a week. What are your thoughts?
Dr. George, do you want to answer that, or we can both answer? Do you want me to start, or do you want to go on that?
Well, you can take a stab at it.
Okay. Fasting, first of all, what we're doing here by doing 2 big meals a day is you are in fact fasting all through the night. And as Dr. George showed all the technical information, fasting is a great way to bring speedy healing to the body. Your body, when it goes through fasting, begins to rid the system of toxins and kill bad and dead and dying cells because it's not so burdened with digestion. It actually has time to heal. So fasting is very healthy. Over fasting is dangerous. So by fasting, I recommend maybe a long fast once a year, like maybe a 3 to 5 day juice fast once a year. We do that here at the Energy Shack. But every week or every 2 weeks, to just take 1 day and just do water or vegetable juice, or just do fruits that day, is actually quite healthy. But you don't want it to get fanatical where you're constantly fasting and for long periods of time, because that can actually have a counter effect.
Okay, Dr. Ko, you want to add anything to that?
Nope.
Give me the final word.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, it's past 7, so we want to respect everyone's time. Just want to first thank Dr. Cho and Carolyn for joining us. That was excellent. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This session, it has been recorded and it was live streamed on Facebook. So if you want to come back to it, just go to our Facebook page, go to on Facebook, Lifestyle is Medicine, and you'll find it there. I also put the websites for Dr. Cho's clinic, Energy Shack, and our website for Lifestyle is Medicine, so you can check it out there as well. So again, thank you so much, and we hope you join us for another Lifestyle Med event in the future. And until then, stay healthy, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.